Hello and welcome to another episode of the Heat Check Podcast. I'm John Devine. This is Anthony Chang. For a 10-10 team, they're still very interesting. As you can tell, we're filming this on Thursday, so let's get right into it because Wednesday night, I don't know what that was, but it was a total takedown. And, people originally went in going, hey, is LeBron washed? But after that, you can ask that about the coach. You can ask that about the whole team. I'm sure Gabe Vincent was thrilled to come back and be part of that beatdown. Yeah. So, talk to us about what you saw last night. First of all, how the heck did they put up all those points?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the question is, how much was that the Heat playing dominant and blowing out the Lakers, and how much of that was the Lakers like just not really being interested in being at that game? It seemed like I haven't seen a more uninspiring defensive performance from a team in a long time. There were some possessions, like there were three guys just standing there in the same place on defense. Like they didn't even move and make an extra effort to contest a shot. It was very strange. The Lakers haven't been terrible this season. They're 12-10 now, even after that loss. But their defense has been pretty bad all year. They've been one of the worst defenses in the league. And the Heat took advantage. They got hot. They set a team record for most assists in a game. They tied a team record for most three-pointers in the game. Tyler Herro scored 21 points in the third quarter, made 7 threes in the third quarter. That tied a team record as well, the 7 threes in a quarter. It was a really good night for the Heat. They needed that after a really rough trip against Toronto and Boston, 2 bad losses. And to beat the Lakers by 41 at home. Again, it's one game. The Lakers didn't play well at all. But you take it, and you hope that you could use this for some type of momentum, maybe string a few wins here together, because the last few weeks it feels like it's been alternating win-loss and just hover around 500. So if they could string a few together here, the schedule isn't especially easy, but they have a shot with Phoenix, missing Kevin Durant on Saturday. Then Cleveland obviously is very good, but they'll be coming on the second half of back-to-back. Who knows who they'll rest that day, if they rest anybody. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Wednesday was a good night for the Heat.
It's just well, let's look into how they did it. I mean, you gave some instances on how they did it. But you're talking about setting a team record on assists, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where did that come out of? In your opinion, was this a drive and kick situation? Is there something they did in their offense, or we kept talking about their new offense going into the season? Did the new offense click? And I know some of it was a lack of effort. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
what can they take from it that they can carry, or is it just a total fluke that night?
No, I mean, I think the ball movement was a lot better. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, it helps when you make shots. That's what leads to assists, right? It doesn't matter the ball movement if you don't make the shot. There's no assist. But Tyler Herro said it after the game. I asked him, like, what did you like about the offensive process? And he goes, we were playing from on both sides of the court, from side to side. And basically that means they're just making the defense move, right? Making the defense work. They're harder to guard that way. So I think that the ball movement was just a lot better. Guys were on the same page. Jimmy was, engaged and involved. I mean, that's been a question this year, right? Because there's some games where he's just sitting in a corner and he's not as involved. That always helps when Jimmy's, playing kind of the role of point guard at 5 assists in 29 minutes. And they obviously made shots. They made a lot of their shots. I think 10 players hit threes for the Heat, which tied a team record as well. So, the Lakers' defense was bad, very bad, and the Heat got hot. And you combine those things together, and the Heat outscored the Lakers. Or what is it? I think 72-15 on threes. 72-15 on threes. Another thing that stands out, he took 47 threes. That is a lot of threes. And we talk about the new offense. Some of that is obviously, increasing the three-point volume, increasing shots at the rim. And we've seen that recently. I think that they took 50 threes against Toronto 3 games ago. They took 47 threes against the Lakers. On the other end, the Lakers only took 22 threes. Again, the math isn't hard there. If a team is outscoring a team by 50 points from three-point range, that can happen every night. But if that happens, you're going to win that game by a lot.
So as an old head, I used to rail against that. So are we telling me the ghost of Mark D'Antoni? I know he's not dead. Yeah. I don't have to come in there in the comments. Are you telling me D'Antoni was right all this time?
Kind of.
Jacking up threes left or I mean, obviously, if you could do it within the flow of, that's right. Better because it's better for your percentage. But Dude, it looks like this is the way it's going. This is the way it is now.
Yeah, look at the Celtics, right? And you have to have the personnel to do it. You
Right.
can't, if you're a backcourt shooting team, you're putting up 53. That's not actually a recipe for success. But the Heat have good 3-point shooters. I mean, Tyler Herro, which we'll probably get to a little bit later in the episode more specifically, but he's been arguably the best 3-point shooter in the NBA this season. He's been incredible. And obviously, when you have 10 guys making threes, you have good 3-point shooters on the roster. And that's been a strength for this team all season. Even though they're 10-10, they've been one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league. So they should take 40 plus threes a night, really. But yeah, is every team going to take 50 threes? No. But 22 threes, like the Lakers took on Wednesday, that's too few. You're just not going to win many games taking 22 threes unless you're just absolutely dominating a team in the paint at the free throw line. 22 threes is way too little. I mean, most teams take that in one half these days.
And it's 22 when you're getting absolutely spanked anyway.
Right.
So you're trying to come back. So,
yeah,
I don't understand. Let's just address it briefly. And I know he came off his slide. LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you see? I mean, he's been on a slump. Some people have actually been calling for it. What did you see out of LeBron last night?
He made a 3 last night, which is good, right? For him.
He missed like 19 in a row or something?
He missed 19 in a row in 3 straight games. I think it was actually like if you take the few he missed the game before the 19 straight, it was like 20-something, 23, 24 threes in a row he missed. He went 1 of 4 last night, so at least he made one. I thought he played well on offense. I mean, he had 29 points on 12 of 18 shooting. For a guy who's going to turn 40 in like 3 weeks, it's pretty impressive. Defensively, I think is where you see him aging. Defensively, and he wasn't the only poor defender last night. I mean, the whole team didn't defend well, but I think defensively, he's just obviously he's not the same guy anymore. He's not a good defender. But offensively, 12, 18 shooting, 29 points. I mean, he wasn't the biggest issue last night. Anthony Davis scoring a season-low 8 points on 3 of 14 shooting, and only grabbing 7 rebounds, no block shots. He should be their best player, and that's just not enough.
Do you think that that the lack of defense out of LeBron, do you think it is disinterest? Physically, and look, one day when you hit 40, you'll find out. But that your mind and body is telling you can do one thing and you just can't, so it's a matter of adjusting. It's
right.
almost like a pitcher. I can't throw 98 anymore, and the guy learns how to throw 95 and comes up with a new pitch. But you keep trying to go back with what you've done for 20, well, in this case, more than 20 years, and you can't. Or is he just stubbornly not, or is he just, and it's also, remember, it's a new coaching staff. I'm sure there's still things that they have to do, and they're bad matchups. But a big part of defense is want to. And do you want to? Or maybe it was such a bad night, everyone's like, you know what? Game's over.
Yeah.
Let's just chuck it and call it another day.
Yeah, it might have been some of that. But I do think it's just when you're almost 40, like it's just tough to play defense at a high level, right? And especially when you're carrying a team like last night on the offensive end. He has 29 points and 18 shots. I mean, there's only so much the guy can do at this point of his career. And yeah, I mean, I think we've seen the last few years, he's not I don't even know, he's not a good defender anymore. And I don't think that's a surprise. But yeah, I think last night was especially bad. But it was everybody. It was, I mean, again, if you rewatch that game, I remember looking at the guy next to me, the reporter next to me, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, do they want to play defense? Like, they were just watching Tyler Herro made like 4 straight threes in the third quarter, and they're going under on a screen and not even contesting a Tyler Herro 3. Usually when a guy's hot like that, right, making 4 straight threes, they're doubling him, blitzing him, they get the ball out of his hands. There was just no sense of urgency. They weren't competing. I think LeBron even said that after the game. He's like, there's no scheme or X and O's that could fix it. It's about us like trying hard and making an effort. It was a really, really strange performance from the Lakers. And I know the Lakers, again, defense has been not good this season. But man, that was another level last night.
It's not like JJ Redick, their first year head coach, comes from this great defensive background. He goes, you know what? I have this entire resource of how to stop people in the back of my head. You know what I mean? You told me the ghost of Gary Payton showed up and said, hey, this is how we're going to play defense. I'm going to listen to him. I don't know who his assistant coach is. sometimes these NBA coaches actually have quote unquote defensive coordinators or whatever. I don't know who theirs is, but you're right. It's been a problem all year. Yeah. Which leads me to one other conspiracy theory on this. Sorry, we have to do that. Is it a chance that LeBron is pouting a little bit because Bronny's not there?
I don't think so. Bronny was actually there yesterday. He's just out with an injury. Right. I know he had been in the G League before that. I don't think so. I mean, LeBron, again, he was engaged last night. He was impressive in spurts. I just think it's kind of a flawed Lakers roster. You know, it's not Anthony Davis. If a team has Anthony Davis, they should have a really good defense. But then you look at the players around him, and then you realize why they don't have a good defense, right? And again, it's just not a good three-point shooting team. And around Anthony Davis and LeBron, you kind of have to have three-point shooting, kind of like the Heat around Jimmy and Bam. It's just kind of a flawed roster, and we've seen that with the Lakers now for the last few years. So I think they're limited, right? And they haven't been bad this season. They're a better record than the Heat, but you look at the last few games, and it has been trending in the wrong direction.
I am glad you said the flawed roster. Here's why, because I was like, there's something else I was thinking about with this game. You said the Heat had 10 players who hit a three last night.
Yep.
One of which was not first-round pick Kel'el Ware, right?
Nope.
But the Lakers have a guy who was picked after Kel'el Ware, Dalton Connect.
Mm-hmm.
And last game not included, has been quite a find among the rookies. Do you think that they made a mistake taking Ware instead of Dalton Connect? And how would he have fit on this roster?
I don't think so. I know it's early, and the other name that's come up with Heat fans is Jared McCain of Philly. He's obviously playing really well, even though he's come back down to earth a little bit lately. But you look at the Heat's roster, we all said it before the draft, and I think hindsight's 2020. I know Kel'el Ware hasn't really had much of an opportunity to do much this year. He's in the G League right now, actually. They sent him to the G League a few days ago just to get some playing time. This team needed size. They still need size. They need a guy with size that could theoretically play next to Bam. And yes, we haven't seen that from Khalil yet, but I think he has the potential to be that. We're only a month and a half into the season. It's still very early. Dalton Connect, he's starting right now for the Lakers. He has been playing well. But where would he – I mean, you have Duncan Robinson and Tyler Herro. You need another minus defender out there on the perimeter. Is he playing ahead of Duncan and Tyler? Probably not, right? And you also have Terry Rozier, which – say what you want about Terry Rozier, but you gave up a first-round pick for him. He needs to play as well. So I understand the pick of getting Kel'el Ware because that's kind of what they needed. They addressed the need, and he's 20 years old with more potential than Dalton Connect, who's an older draft prospect, obviously. And even McCain, same thing. Is McCain playing ahead of Tyler Herro at this point? No. Is he playing ahead of Duncan Robinson? Probably not. Is he playing ahead of Terry Rozier? Probably not. So I get the pick. And yes, right now fans could say, well, Dalton is playing well, Jared McCain's playing well, Kel'el Ware hasn't done anything, they're not even using him. I think in the grand scheme of things, it made a lot of sense.
I will say in the short bursts that they've actually played him, you know, the only person who blocks shots like him is Bam. There are people, you know, you'll get positional block shots, you know, you kind of turn him into somebody, but someone who goes up and gets it, there's nobody else on that team outside of Bam who goes to do that.
I mean, he's a 20-year-old 7-footer who can be an elite rim protector and has the potential to be a three-point shooter. We've seen him already knock down a few threes in his limited playing time this year. Last year in college, he shot the three ball well. That doesn't come around often. And that's kind of the big you need next to Bam. There aren't many bigs who have that combination. And the few bigs that do have it, it's really hard to get them on the trade market because everybody wants them. So if there's somebody like that available when it's your turn to make a pick, I think they made the right. We'll see how it plays out, right? Who knows? Right. But I think they made the right decision.
I argue he might be a better three-point shooter than Bam right now.
Yeah,
it's close. I mean, obviously, you got to play some. You got to get on the floor.
But. Yeah, I think you could argue that. There's no doubt. I wouldn't be against that.
And then we still throw Nico. How tall is Nico? 6'10", 6'11"?
6'11", 6'10", 6'11". But he doesn't play as big, right, as Kel'el Ware. Kel'el Ware plays like, you know, he needs to add some muscle. He's thin, but he plays bigger. He's more athletic, blocks shots. and he's longer. I think it's like a 7'5" wingspan, so that helps.
With the Heat's program, I don't think he's going to lack for any idea for what the roadmap is to get to where he needs to physically. I think they'll do everything they can to help him to fill out that frame. And you're right, he's 20. Kids at 20 do not look like kids at 23.
No.
So that's a good thing. It's just, I think Connect went off at like 37 a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's like, oh, look at this guy. He's great. And you're right. It's like, okay, the Heat could use shooting. And you said the way they're set up, you need someone to exploit those double teams. He could do that. But what do you lose overall? You also need size. So pick your poison because you're right. You have no Khalil Ware in a couple of years, and then Anthony Davis is lighting you up, and Bam's in foul trouble. You have no options. So that is true. But the team they did not have an answer for, the player they didn't have an answer for happened to be Tyler Herro. We keep saying this is a best stretch. This stretch has lasted 20 games. When is this no longer a stretch, and are we maybe reestablishing what his ceiling could be?
Is he in the running for most improved player?
He should be.
He should be, right? Is he going to be an all-star this year? Is he going to be the Heat's all-star? He might be. And if I would have told you that before the season, I don't know if Heat fans would have believed that, right? I mean, Tyler Herro's always been pretty good, but he, again, has arguably been the best three-point shooter in the NBA. You look at the players, there's, I think, 6 players who are averaging more than 10 three-point attempts per game, Herro being one of them. Herro ranks second in three-point percentage, only behind Anthony Edwards. Tyler's shooting 42% on threes on 10.3 attempts per game. That is Steph Curry-like numbers. So is he going to keep that up? I don't know. It's hard to keep up. Not many players in NBA history have shot over 40% when taking 10 three-pointers a game. But again, like you said, it's been 20 games. And I think the other thing you got to point out is he's been healthy. He's played in all 20 games, which has been an issue for him throughout his career. He has battled injury issues. He's been available. He's been effective. He's probably been the Heat's most consistent player at this point. Their leading scorer. He's also averaging 5 rebounds and 5 assists. Is he the best defender? No. Does he still get exploited sometimes on defense? Yes. That's not gonna. I mean, even Steph Curry, right? Like Steph Curry's not the best defender, but if you're in the right spot and you try, which I think Tyler Herro most of the time he tries and he's in the right spot, you could make up for some of that. But what Tyler Herro is doing on offense, especially with his shooting, it's just been really impressive. And the way he's kind of changed his offensive game and bought into what he wants from him, changing his shot profile, eliminating those mid-range shots, taking more shots at the rim, obviously taking more threes. It's really been it's winning stuff, right? He's doing things that lead to wins. You look at all these games and you're like, where would the Heat be without Tyler Herro? Again, I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he's done so far.
Well, let's play with math. I don't have a chalkboard behind me, so I'm just gonna write it out. You said 4.2 makes per like every 10 attempts, right?
Yeah, 4.3 for every 10 attempts.
Okay, so let's do this. So every 10 three-pointers he makes like more than 4, right? So that's 12 points for every 10 shots. Okay? For all you math people or all you old heads who go, people shoot too many threes. Realize, people, from a math standpoint, if he's taking 10 two-pointers or 10 layups, you got to make 6 of them to equal the same productivity.
Yeah.
So just 3 times 4 is 12, 2 times 6 is 12. That's what would even it out. So that's part of the reason people are jacking up 53s a game now. But in that case, that's when it's effective, and that's why you do it. The other thing is that as much as people go, hey, the game has passed Pat by, he can't go out there demanding these sorts of things, because at the end of the year, Pat Riley goes, this is the state of the team, this is what I need. And you know what he was saying? He was like, hey, he gave a final report card on players. This is what Tyler Herro needs to do. He needs to be available. He needs to bulk up. He's got these nagging injuries. Instead of hearing him go off on it or be upset, and I think, was it the year before, he had shut down his social media for a while, and everyone's like, oh my goodness, what's going on? He's so upset. This year, you didn't hear a peep. He got in the lab. He went to work. He showed up with a little more size to him.
Yeah.
And it seems like he has taken whatever to heart. and the results have showed. So for all of us who like to say, I don't know if those motivational tools work on today's athlete, seems to have worked on this one. Now, we hope he stays healthy the rest of the time to see what he can actually put up.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have a combo guard who can give you either or.
It feels like Tyler Herro's been here forever. How old is Tyler Herro? How old do you think Tyler Herro is?
24, 25?
You're right, 24. You know how old Dalton Connect is?
23.
I mean, yes, he's been around for a while, but he's 24. He's maybe 2-3 years away from his prime. Again, I'm not saying he's gonna be Steph Curry. I'm not saying that, but he's gonna continue to get better. And his contract, for all the criticism he got, his contract isn't bad either. I think he's making like 29, 30 million in today's NBA.
That's bad.
Not bad at all for that level of production. So, again, I think Tyler Herro has gone from, 2 years ago, everyone's criticizing why would Portland take him for Dame? Like, why would they want him? Now all of a sudden, he's an asset, right, for this Heat team. A good contract, good player who's continuing to get better. Like you said, I think the key is staying healthy. That's going to be the biggest thing, right? Because he's had not this long of a sustained stretch, but he's had good stretches before. Then he sprains an ankle. He misses 3 weeks. Comes back, takes some time to ramp up. And it's just that in and out that leads to the fall off in his production. If he can stay healthy, again, I think he has a really good chance of being an all-star in the Eastern Conference. Just because of you look at the offensive numbers, there aren't many players who are doing what he's doing.
I would love to see him get to the All-Star game with like 5 or less games missed.
Yeah.
And I think if he misses 5 or less, I think if he doesn't make the All-Star team with the way he's playing, I think there should be some sort of outrage. Not quite outrage about University of Miami and whether they should make the playoff, but I think there should be.
Don't get me started on that, Jason. Don't get me started on
that. That's a separate podcast, people. And we'll make sure that you can tune in over there when that one happens.
Bring me on the Hurricane podcast. I can give my takes on that.
Absolutely. But it's just, it's amazing. So we're looking, and if I'm not mistaken, with the NBA tournament, the Heat's pretty much out of that.
They're out, yeah.
But the way the scheduling quirk works, then they get 2 games that they've had to add in for the schedule. Who have they added in, and how does that seem to work? I know one of them is a familiar foe, which is Detroit. It seems like we play them every single week.
And Toronto, which they've played twice in the last 6 days. They play Toronto. So they obviously have a 3-game home. Now it's a 4-game homestand. They have the Lakers. They have Phoenix on Saturday, Cleveland on Sunday, and then they got the game added against Toronto at home on Thursday. So they have basically a 4-game homestand. And then they're off for a few days, and they go to Detroit to face the Pistons on Monday, the site of Eric Spoelstra's timeout fiasco. And then they're off till Friday. It's they already had a 5-day break in between games a couple weeks ago, and now I think they have 2 games in an 11-day span, I believe. It's just strange. And they have all these back-to-backs and 3 and 4 nights, and then they have 2 games in 11 days because of the in-season tournament. There's they have a back-to-back Saturday, Sunday, and then they have a bunch of time off to practice, to rest. They have 2 games in the next 11 days after that game against Cleveland on Sunday. So, yeah, I think all things considered, Toronto and Detroit, they've lost to both those teams this year, so I'm not going to say they're easy games. But considering who they could have matched up against, not terrible. They're definitely winnable games for Miami.
I honestly think the Heat, more than anyone else, and knowing Coach Spo's background, I think him getting time in between where they get to actually sit and practice.
Well, they love that, yeah.
Yes. Like they always say, it's like going in the lab. He gets to cook up some stuff.
Yeah.
I think maybe he'll feel more rotation, more experimentation with the rotations, putting different combinations together to see how they work. And probably even refining that defense even a little bit more and turning those screws. It seems like historically, the Heat's defense gets better as the season wears on. And I think, having 2 games in 11 days, it gets to really play around with that a little.
Yeah.
So
by the way, I forgot to mention this about last night. How good was the Heat's offensive performance? The Heat entered yesterday with a 20th ranked offensive rating in the NBA. Not good, right?
Right.
Kind of where they've been the last few seasons. After last night, they now have the 12th ranked offensive rating in the league. They moved up 8 spots in the rankings. That's how
kind of
good.
ridiculous.
Now all of a sudden they almost have a top 10 offense in the league just because of one game. That's how good that performance was. So I think that kind of shows you what last night was for the Heat and how bad the Lakers defense was.
It's really going to be curious to see if the offensive momentum, it doesn't mean scoring 140 points a game, but the efficiency, the movement, the finding the open man. And you know what? And you said it early in this podcast, getting Jimmy to get to spots where he's not sitting out in the corners and, just sitting there waiting for catch and shoots or to catch and then drive and do what he has to do. You're right. Getting him involved and buying in is probably as big a factor as anything else. So here's hoping that as a group they can unlock that.
Yeah,
maybe it's Art Basel's fault. Everybody wanted to go to Art Basel.
I will say this: players were in a rush to get out of the locker room last night. They had a bunch of plans to go out because there was no practice today with 2 days off between games. Art Basel obviously is going on this week. You can tell by the traffic around the arena. And I think Jimmy was he darted out of there. He was gone in 5 minutes. So yeah, Art Basel, players love that stuff. Everybody loves it.
Look, if I have that kind of disposable income, sure. I'm not spending $1 million for a banana taped to a wall, but if that's your thing, you go for it. I don't know. I think rich and famous people like to see other rich and famous people. Yeah. Because they can actually walk up and talk to them, but still.
It's a place to be, place to be seen, place to, it's the place to be right now in Miami. So
they can keep it.
Yeah. To your point about Jimmy, and I put this today in my recap of the first 20 games and what we've learned about the team so far. The Heat is 6 and this shouldn't be surprising because Jimmy should be the best player on the team and they're better when he's good. The Heat is 6-2 and Butler records a usage rate over 20%, 2-5 when he doesn't hit the 20% usage rate threshold. Basically, I mean, again, it's not a huge sample, but that sample has held true for the last few years too. When he has a high usage rate, they usually win games. When he doesn't and he's not involved, they don't. You look at that game in Toronto on Sunday, he had the second lowest usage rate on the team. 13%. That's just not acceptable. That's a usage rate of an 8th man. That's not acceptable. He needs to be one of the top 2, top 3 usage guys every night. And when he is, they're a much better team. So yeah, I think like you said, that's one of the more important things moving forward.
And, there are certain players that can affect the game and not have that usage rate. I think to an extent, Bam is one of those guys. And look, that's not an easy thing to pull off. And yes, can Jimmy do that to an extent? Yes, but that's not the best Jimmy you're going to get. So why play that game? Unless it's some weird, we're playing in the playoffs over 7 games, you want to throw a switch at him and see if it works. But from day to day, you got to ride that. Look, Tyler Herro needs the ball in his hands to be effective. Yes, he can run around, do catch and shoot threes. But that Duncan Robinson is a guy who runs around and looks around to catch and shoot. That's his job. But Tyler and Jimmy, you got to get them the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, Jimmy's not a floor spacer. He's not a guy you're going to just sit out there and teams are going to, respect on the 3-point line. The question is with Jimmy at this point of his career, 35 years old, and we say about LeBron, who's 39, can he do it every night? Is this up and down usage rate this year indicative of Jimmy can do it every other night? He could do it when there's 2 days off between games, but on a back-to-back or 3rd game in 4 nights, he can't carry the load, So again, I don't know. We're going to find out the answer over the rest of the season, but that is something you have to ask considering how up and down it's been, where one night he has a 27% usage rate and the other night it's 13% or it's 15%. It's just those swings have been so crazy that it makes you wonder if that's a sign of aging for Jimmy. He's been good, but can he do it consistently?
Well, as somebody who is aging all the time, you wouldn't.
Well, Jimmy's my age, so I have to say, okay. Jimmy's my age.
I always think about it, and we spoke about it earlier. There's aging. There's whether your legs still have it in you to just move. It's like, oh, slide, move. It's like, And sometimes it is disinterested. Remember, as much as, there are different combinations and different defenses, there is nothing he hasn't seen.
Right.
And in the big picture of it, it's kind of like, yeah, well, you know what? Today, I just think this is kind of foolish. We'll get through it. And it may not be that he doesn't buy in, but he just isn't coming right off the blocks and going, yes, let me go jump on and do
right.
this. It's more like, and then all of a sudden you look by and somebody's cut back door on you. You're like, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
Or, you take an extra half second to time that jump to get in the right place. And, the ball swings around from one corner to the other. And somebody in Boston is shooting yet another three from the corner. And it's those sometimes it's not physical. It's your focus. Because you're just like, what's the point of this? And that's why I think the concept of a playoff Jimmy, or the concept of even LeBron in the playoffs, wow, look how focused these people are. Because then the stakes are so high that the focus has to be that intense. But to gear up 82 nights or a back-to-back or 3 games in 4 nights, sometimes it's just like, I don't have that focus.
It's like me when I'm running takeaways. Sometimes
you write that third takeaway, you've been on that flight with stale food, or you get a delay, or there's snow. All of a sudden, it's like, what happened in this game? And you're like, that happened last night. Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Sometimes I wake up in a hotel, I'm like, where am I? I don't even remember.
Exactly.
But Jimmy plays such a physical style, right? I mean, you see some of these high usage games, he's drawing 15, 16 free throws. It's not this, Tyler Herro who's just taking 8 threes. Jimmy's working hard for those points. So again, that wears on guys, and we've seen it already. He had the sprained ankle. He left the game early because of back issue. He obviously missed the game earlier this week because of a knee soreness. So, they've been minor things, but that's something to watch too. Like, Jimmy has to be available. He has to stay healthy. He has to be involved. That's a lot on him at this point. But again, he wants a max contract, right? So that's what max players do.
Yep. So, but I think, we have a little bit of a break we have a little bit of break for them. We can see what they're going to cook up. It's going to be interesting to watch. Those 2 added games are interesting because I think when you play an opponent repeatedly, like they will for Toronto and Detroit, you get to see what kind of changes you're going to make. You've seen a couple times, like, for example, hey, we can't defend when Cade Cunningham does this, for example. How do we go in there and manage that? Because, like every sports copycat league, if one guy does this, everybody's going to keep running that same play. You remember when Spo went kind of nuts, it was almost a duplicate of the play that Spo ran the night before to win that game.
Yeah.
So adjustments, for those people who are really looking at the game, really looking tight, the adjustments should be fun to watch.
Yeah. This is the 3rd time they face each team in the past 4 or 5 weeks.
Right.
A lot. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And again, they've split both. They've split with the Raptors so far. They've split with Detroit. They've had issues against both teams. Both teams are young, athletic, can rebound the ball, which kind of gives the Heat's they're big too. Both teams are pretty big. That gives the Heat issues. So yes, they're winnable games. It's better than facing Cleveland, I guess, as an extra game. But they definitely won't be easy ones.
But we are 20 games in. We keep talking about, that's a moral victory. Time for moral victories and, these missed opportunities.
Right. And
you can see as they keep fighting for these 8 seeds and whether they're the play-ins, these games now, as much as we thought before there's time, but what did Yogi Berra say? It's getting early late, or it's getting late early, and it's getting late early. So they have to bank in everyone they can get because you never know how that season's going to go. God forbid there's an injury somewhere where someone's out 3 days. We talked about the Tyler scenario where Herro gets hurt, takes a couple weeks, takes time to ramp up, then you lose that pocket that you were in. So let's hope for some good health. Let's hope that they get in that lab and work it out. And if you want to find out what's going on, the person you're looking for is Anthony Chang, Chang at MiamiHerald.com. If you have questions for him, he's on X. He's on Facebook. He's not on Blue Sky yet.
I am actually.
Oh, he's on Blue Sky. Look at that.
I'm not as active. Sometimes I'll forget to post stuff on there that I post on X, but I have an account, so follow me on there.
We'll figure that out. Put it this way: we will be where you're looking for. If you're looking for Heat stuff, we're gonna find you. Yeah. So, but just do a search on the name Anthony Chang. He will help find you. Anthony Chang, Barry Jackson, you know, the Miami Herald will have people on the ground making sure we can see what's going on with the Heat and being ahead of the curve. So for this episode, we'd like to thank you for showing up. I'm John Devine. This is Anthony Chang. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.